To elaborate on my previous video about the Snyder Gray case and how it was translated into into various art forms. And one thing that it's easy to overlook from a modern perspective is how this case, in an odd way, underlines the fact that America is a nation of immigrants and the tensions that have been caused by America being a nation of immigrants. Ruth Brown grew up very self-conscious because her parents, both white people, were from Sweden and Norway, and they had very thick accents. And she was extremely self-conscious about the fact that they had these thick, non-English accents. Before she agreed to marry Albert Snyder, his name was Schneider, he had to change his name to Albert Snyder, Snyder. He had to anglicize his clearly German name. And the reason she insisted on this was because this was right after World War I. And there was a certain amount of hostility during that time period toward people of German ancestry, who are one of the major Caucasian groups in America. And they were at that time as well. In fact, the man who led the Yanks in Europe, General Pershing, was in fact at least partly of German ancestry. And nobody thought it was dangerous to put him in charge of the fight against Germany. Okay, and oddly enough, during the World War II, another man, Dwight David Eisenhower, also of German ancestry, would be put in charge of the fight against Germany. That happened both times. And again, that's another thing that underlines the kind of oddness of America as a nation of people whose ancestors usually immigrated here. And anyway, going back to Snyder Gray, when James M. Cain wrote The Postman Always Rings Twice, he had the stand-in for Ruth Snyder marry a man named Nick Papadopoulos, or it was a Greek, a Greek American. And he also had that character suffer a certain amount of self-consciousness about being married to a Greek. The novel is set in the 1930s, not in the 1920s, when Snyder Gray happened. But the thing is that she gets upset when Frank Chambers says, he compliments the enchiladas and said, "You people sure know how to make them." And she says, "What do you mean by you people?" And he said, "You and Nick." And then she says, "Do you think I'm," and she said, MEX, short for Mexican or Mexican American. And she was very adamant that she was white. Okay. And she was different than Lana Turner because she had black hair. And she thought people might think she was of Mexican ancestry. And, she was very adamant that she was white. And Frank Chambers, in his telling the story, said that he believed that it wasn't the enchiladas that she had to cook, that made her feel she wasn't quite white. It was being married to a Greek. No, Greeks are white. But there was a sense in that era in which people from Southern or Eastern Europe weren't considered quite as white as people from Northern and Western Europe. Now, interestingly, when they took the novella and translated it to the screen, it was no longer Nick Papadopoulos. It was Nick Smith. His, they got away. They anglicized the Greek American character into, basically a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant character, just as Ruth Snyder had insisted that her fiance anglicize his name from obviously German Schneider to the English Snyder. And anyway, so the tensions between various ethnic groups in the United States can show up in odd ways. And I'm just pointing out how in the Snyder Gray case and in the Postman Always Rings Twice, you can see how, the odd effects of the, the coming together of different ethnic groups, and also the tendency to want to kind of wipe that away by some people, by not Americanizing, but by anglicizing, anglicizing names. And we can see this in the original case, and we can see this in the transfer of a novel based on the case to a movie. So I hope you enjoyed hearing that. And I hope you'll subscribe, tell other people about my channel, help me grow my social media presence. Bye.